What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're talking about the Associate Product Manager program at Google. What is it, and how can you apply and get your best application in the door? And I have Obi Okoli with me, who is currently an Associate Product Manager at Google, who has actually gone through the internship program as well as the full-time opportunity. And he's going to show us how he was able to get his best application submitted, as well as get the return offer to go full-time. So if you're interested in product management, maybe you're a current college student, you're exploring software engineering, you're exploring product management or startups, this is probably a really good video for you. Make sure you subscribe, like, and engage in the comment section. And we're excited to get started. All right, so we're going to jump into it with an introduction of Obi. So he is actually currently a Google employee, just like myself. So we got to meet each other a few months back. And his background is really impressive. He's, studied computer science and economics at Columbia University, my alma mater as well. And we actually didn't know each other until this year. So it's crazy how paths can cross somehow. But he's worked on his own startup. He's done an internship and APM at two different companies. With all of that background, he's landed an APM role at Google. So let's jump into it. I'm going to ask you, Obi, quickly, if you can give us, an intro on, what your current role is and what you're maybe most excited about in the APM program.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for the introduction, Michael. So I'm currently in APM one at Google. So the APM program consists of like two 9 to 12 month long rotations. So the full program is like usually about like 20 to 20 months, so like 2 years.
Mhm.
Um, but right now I'm on Gmail spam intelligence. So we basically train and like develop the models that address Gmail spam.
Yeah.
And that comes like along with like all the like cybersecurity and like abuse fighting, like nuances with, email security. So I've been on this team for about like 5 months now, 4 or 5 months, and yeah, definitely learning a lot. It's definitely a more technical team.
Mhm.
Uh, I've had to learn a lot more about machine learning and like the
Mhm.
cybersecurity space. But overall, like I think it's a great opportunity to like have like kind of like this exposure to like leadership,
Mhm.
like this early in my career. And like I'm definitely looking forward to my next rotation.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
is the thing you're most looking forward to, getting to try different products at Google in the 2 years that you're in APM?
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like that's like the nice thing about the APM program. I think it's like you kind of get to get exposure to like a lot of different products at Google, and like each team at Google is just like fundamentally different.
Mhm.
Depending on like the size of your team, whether you're working on something a lot more like customer facing or more like on the back end, like the experience of each PM like looks fundamentally different. For example, last summer I was on YouTube Premium, which is like YouTube's subscription plan. Um, Very user facing, very like business facing. We had like ex McKinsey consultants on our team as
Mhm.
PMs. Um, so and like the PM org was also like very large there. Compare that to like Gmail spam intelligence um, or Gmail security. We
Mhm.
have two PMs, and so I think like the ratio for like PM to engineer is like 1 to 25,
Wow.
whereas at on YouTube Premium it was like 1 to 10. Um,
Mm.
so I think every
Wow.
org will look different. Yeah, definitely like last summer, and like I feel like this is like the universal experience for like every APM intern is that it's just like, okay, like we want you to get this done in 3 months, and then they just like throw you in the water, and then
Mm.
you basically like a lot of what you have to do as a PM is like might be new to you, so uh, and just like strong leadership skills, communication skills, maybe telling an engineering manager who has like 15 years more of experience than you that like, hey, we need to get this done in like the next 3 months. Like, how can we get there? That's like a very like new foreign experience, but I think it kind of like yeah, it kind of forces you to kind of like take on that bigger leadership role.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I guess we can kick it off really to talk about what the APM program is. So yeah, why don't we start with that? Can we maybe start with the question of what is the Associate Product Manager program? I know there's the internship and then there's a full-time opportunity. So how would you, explain what those two are?
Yeah, I'll start with the full-time opportunity, because I think that's the opportunity that like you'll probably just like find on the website.
Yeah.
So the APM program is a 18, I would say like an 18 to 22-month rotational program where you work on two different teams at Google. The program was originally started by Melissa Mayer
Hmm.
in 2002. And she was an early engineer. I think she was like the first female engineer at Google, and
Hmm.
she later became a product manager at Google. But she started it to bring in basically like really high potential new grads, and these are people that she thought that like maybe they had like previous like entrepreneurship experience, but she wanted to bring them into Google because new grads tend to be a lot more, they're probably less risk averse, and they're willing to be like innovative. I think
Hmm.
at a very large company like Google, it's like very easy uh, to maybe keep doing things the way you've been doing them because like it earns you revenue. Like you have a lot of user experiences you want to disrupt. But I think the point of the APM program was to build like bring in kind of like fresh minded, like young, uh, entrepreneurial minded people
Hmm.
to basically like disrupt and improve products at Google. So Melissa ended up being like the CEO of Yahoo. And I think like a lot of like other like early PMs or like APMs ended up doing like a lot of cool things.
Yeah.
Um, but the program has been going on for about like 22 years now.
Yeah.
And the class sizes have grown from like 55 people to like now like 50 people.
Hmm.
Um, and in general, like a lot of APMs do stay at Google. A lot of them go on to do a lot of other things. But I think like the purpose of the program is to kind of like train PM talent kind of in-house and really like develop, like I think really teach them to understand how product works at Google. Because product at Google tends to be different than other companies. Google's a very engineering driven company. So kind of navigating that. Um, and like engineers at Google also have a lot of authority over product, the direction of products. So as a PM at Google, like you're often being told, you need to learn how to manage without authority.
Yeah.
So like kind of drive the direction of things without having authority over people. So I think that was like kind of the main like thesis of the APM program.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's been going on for, like you said, over 20 years. It's at this point, I've seen that, the acceptance rate is like below 1% just because of how popular it is and how many applicants, are trying to get into this program. Let's now, I guess, go into the application side. So, what is the application process for someone who's applying to the internship program for junior year summer?
Yeah, so the current application process, it switches time to time. But if I like recall correctly, the current application process right now is uh, you apply to the program, and then you have like a one a 45 of 1 45-minute interview,
Hmm.
um, and that usually is like an interview screening with either a recruiter or like a PM at Google. And it's typically like a product design question. If you move past that, you have, I think it's now two 45-minute interviews that either go over like an estimation question or I think maybe like an analytical, like a strategic question. They're kind of interested in seeing like how you go about solving the problem rather than
Yeah.
like, do you actually arrive at like the right number? So after that, I think is the final round, which is another interview, but also like a written portion. So in the past, like written portions, I think like maybe you'd had to like create like a PRD for like a mock product that you want to develop,
Yeah.
or also like create like a slide deck. I'm not sure what it is this time around, but there's always like a written like deliverable that you also have to like submit with your application. Really, the only difference between uh, the intern and full-time application processes is, I think it's the addition of one interview. So it's just like one extra 45-minute interview for the full-time. And then I think they also assess you for an extra dimension, uh, which might be like Googliness or like cross-functional collaboration, one of those. Um, Basically just like an extra dimension that they'd typically be assessing like other full times across like other roles for. Yeah.
Gotcha. So now I'm gonna ask, the question around how you can create the best application for this program. And given your resume, like there's some really impressive things like working on your own startup, and obviously having a technical background as well, having studied computer science and economics, and doing the similar associate product manager program your sophomore summer. So these are all really important. And I get this question a lot. What can I do to improve my chances? So would you recommend that people explore all of these different sides of your resume, or are there other things that you would also add to this list?
So I'm like a little bit biased because I did like that experience did work for me.
Yeah.
Um, but also just like I think if I observe like the experiences of like the other people in like my APM cohort, like the 40 other some people, um, I think the number one commonality is like they all had technical backgrounds. So they either studied computer science, computer engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, some like an engineering major. Um, and for people who didn't study in like an engineering major,
Hmm.
they typically studied like a business major with an engineering minor.
I see.
So an economics major, CS minor. And I think why like Google in particular has like a bias towards people with engineering backgrounds is because like a lot of the products that you might be working on are technical, and you just need to understand the engineers that you work with.
Yeah.
Um, in a lot of contexts, not all contexts, but in some like in most contexts, it might allow you to ramp up faster on your team within your 9 to 12 month rotation.
Yeah. Which is a
Um,
short amount of time if you really think about how much impact you can deliver in a 9 month time frame, and it takes you, let's say, 2 to 3 months to understand the product, meet everyone, ramp up on the code base or just the product roadmap, whatever, everything that you're going to work on.
It's a short time to like really deliver impact during your rotation.
I think the main takeaway sounds like is like the CS background is important because you can cut down that time to ramp up on the technical side as a PM. And so it is encouraged, even if you don't study computer science, that you have a concentration or minor in computer science.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of like another similar experience is like a lot of people were previously like software engineering interns at either like a startup or like a big tech company. I would say like um, if you can try getting an like a software engineering internship at Google. I would say about like 40-50% of my class were step interns or SWE
Mhm.
interns at Google before they were APM interns. Um, and for like some more context, I think about like 80% of the full-time APM class were previously APM interns. So it definitely helps to like get the internship if you are like looking to get the full-time. Um, I think starting a project in any capacity, whether it's like a startup, a club at your school, a nonprofit, is maybe it's really important. Um, I think being showing that like you were able to start something on your own without necessarily being asked to do it, um, kind of like points to like what you have to do day to day in the PM role. Um, like as a PM, you have to kind of drive the direction of your project. Uh, you're going to be dealing with a lot of ambiguity, and sometimes people aren't going to tell you how things should be or how like what the plan should be for your project. Um, so I think kind of exposing to yourself to that through a startup, or through like a school club is like a really valuable experience, and it's something you can talk to in your interviews. So for example, like when I started Critica, I was working across front end engineering, back end marketing. Like I was doing a lot of the social media content. We were filling out like legal forms to incorporate. Uh, I was also like the UI designer on the team. So I was working a lot across a lot of different functions, which allowed me to kind of develop uh, empathy for like the people I would have been working with in the PM role at Google. Uh, so I think that's pretty important. Um, but yeah, if you can't start a company, like I don't uh, like recommend that anybody necessarily like starts a company in college. It's a lot of work, and like I think definitely like uh, of some of my academic success, like definitely suffered as a result of me like working on this thing like throughout the day. Um, but I think it it kind of brings you as close as you can to product management as you can, uh, without ever having a formal PM role.
Yeah, I love that. The reality is you learn a lot outside of the classroom and doing these side projects, probably more than maybe what you learn in the classroom. Um, there's probably a handful of like impactful CS courses or product courses or marketing courses that you can take with you and have it be very practical. But the experience of actually doing the work is such a good call out, and why I always recommend people start a project. Just go build something, go find a co-founder on the Y Combinator co-founder matching platform, or reach out to your alumni, whatever it is, or your classmates, and just build something, because you learn so much. So that's great. You called out like being technical as possible, even if you're not a computer science major or minor, mechanical, some kind of engineering background, starting your own project, and then if you can get the software engineering internship. All right. Did we
Yeah,
miss anything
definitely.
else that can help applicants who are exploring this opportunity?
Yeah, and like I think definitely for applicants who are uh, kind of further along, and like maybe you don't have enough time to like start a new project, or maybe you didn't intend to like intern at Google beforehand. I think trying to take your current experiences and highlighting kind of your leadership capabilities as much as possible. So if you, for example, were like part of like a club in your school where you had to like work across a lot of different functions, or people were doing like a lot of different things, definitely calling that out. Um, and if you have the opportunity to like take any CS classes, to even just like develop like a CS minor, um, or just do like a small like software engineering winter internship, I think like those could make a big difference as well.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, do as much as you can to get that
Yeah.
best application. All right, so now we can maybe move into the interview process and how applicants prepare. So, like, maybe walk me through like your process of actually preparing for the first round interview.
Yeah. So I would say like my process was a little bit stretched out. I first started looking at like PM programs in my sophomore year of college. So I originally applied to this program that Meta offered at the time. It was like Meta University, and it was like the data science track. And that data science track had like a product component to the interviews. So that's when I started like kind of um, gaining exposure to like what a product interview looks like. Uh, at the time, uh, yeah, at the time, one of my friends' brother was actually working at Meta as a PM.
Mhm.
So I think having that connection to someone who's like in a PM role, like within a big tech company, you can kind of like relay all the questions you have about being a PM to them, which I think makes like a huge difference. Um, so I started like prepping with him for those like product interviews. Didn't end up doing that program, but the following year, when I was preparing for the Google APM internship, like the interviews for that, um, I think that was like a pretty valuable resource to have. So I started prepping for the internships about maybe 3 months before like the first interview. And I would just take maybe like 3 days a week to sit down and just like uh, read through all the resources about like PM interview prep, like cracking the PM interview, like the book. Um, Try Exponent, the website. I ended up actually subscribing to that website because it was just like that good.
Yep, me
Um,
too.
yeah, it's like probably like the most. If you, I feel like if you don't do anything else, like just use Try Exponent, it'll just like
Yeah.
cover everything you want to know. Um,
I'm surprised by how many people I talk to like on LinkedIn and in the DMs are like, "Oh, I've never heard of this," and I'm like, "What?" Like, if you're
yeah,
applying, this is like the sort of like the elite code of PM. Like, you gotta go
it's the
through,
leak code of PM. That's exactly what it is.
right?
Yeah, and I think it's like if you're somebody who like is pretty busy and it's like hard for you to like set apart time to do something, it's like that program just like walks you through how to do it. Like um I just like also just like try to get used to talking about products, talking about like um different like technologies available in tech. Um like computer vision, cloud computing. Right now, like AI is probably really big. Um, and with that, like also just like listening to like a lot of podcasts, watching Marcus Brownlee on YouTube, just to like understand how he talks about products and what makes a good product, what makes a bad product.
Mhm.
I read a book that's like sitting on my shelf right now. It's called like Design of Everyday Things, which
Cool.
basically just like it kind of just like puts like yeah like everyday things like a kettle in the perspective of like a designer. So just like practicing observing like the world around you and just like asking the question like why do they make it that way,
Yeah.
like how do they go about selling it, uh why was this better than what came before it. I think like those kind of answering those like fundamental questions like helps prepare you for like a lot of the interviews you'll be doing. So kind of 2 months before the interview, I kind of ramped up how much I practiced interviews. So I was like practicing maybe an hour a day, um, basically each day, like 2 months for my interview, to the point where like interviewing kind of became like second nature. And I think that's the experience for like a lot of the other APMs I talk to. Like they just practiced a lot. I think a lot of people like want to know like, oh, like what's the secret sauce for landing the program? Once you get the interview, like so much of like if you actually get the offer is like dependent on how well you did during the interviews. And like the people who ended up getting offers, like they just practice the interview every day for at least a month, 2 months. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just like kind of religiously practicing the interview. Like that's I guess how I put my best foot forward.
I love that.
Yeah.
The design of everyday things. That's a recommendation. I'm gonna pick that book up as well, because that's how I think about the world around me. So I'm super interested to see how this book, portrays it, because that's like exactly how I am. Like, it could be like things in the kitchen or the train. Like, I'm like, what's the schedule to make sure like there's efficiency for like the number of people that are getting on this train, or like why is it built that way, why is it designed that way. So that's like a good tip, because it just prepares you for these interviews and your every day as a PM to think in a creative way, to think from the perspective of like the user, to try to work back of like who's the ideal user for this product, like who did they have in mind when they built this. So I love that suggestion. And then the repetition thing, that's when I interviewed for Google product manager role, is the same thing. It was a matter of like how many questions I've never heard of could I get in front of me.
Yeah.
And that's why I did try Exponent, and I paid for the subscription as well, because it provided a list of questions that were like certified. I knew they were like legit questions, but they were new. So it's like, okay, this is an opportunity to test like how actually effective I am at, starting from scratch, having no context, trying to start from the basics of like who's the ideal user. So yeah, these are really good tips for APMs. Also for people who are applying directly to a PM role. That was a lot. I loved it. Maybe you can tell us what are the next steps like once you pass the interview. Then I think there's some maybe team matching process that might have to happen because you do rotate, right? Like you have two opportunities.
Yeah, yeah. So the matching process. So after you pass the interview, you get your offer. The matching process is kind of based on your own preferences, which is kind of different than like the new grad SWE matching process. With that matching process, like you're basically re-interviewing with teams, and then also like your offer isn't guaranteed. It's guaranteed if you match with a team. With the APM program and the APM internship, like your offer is guaranteed, and then it's like you kind of provide your preferences. Do you like a more technical team, design facing team, a team with a lot of APMs, a team with like very few APMs, uh, a new team, uh, or like a very established team? So all of these things you can kind of like voice in a Google form, and then they'll do their best to match you with a team, also like based on business needs and uh, all those things. Um, for the APM for the APM internship and then the APM one rotation, the matching process is pretty similar. Now for the APM two rotation, um, people kind of believe that the matching process is also like is based a little bit more on the relationships that you have with those teams. Because what typically happens is that you do your APM rotation on this team, say like Google Maps. A lot of people actually stay on their APM2 team, kind of graduating from the program and being promoted to like a level, like an L4 PM. Um, so a lot of the work that you do on your APM2 team kind of matters a bit more. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, that's good to know. And maybe the last question to wrap it up, looking back at maybe the early days at Columbia when you were exploring like computer science startups, like what was the thing that made you think, hey, I should be a product manager? Like this is the path for me. Was there a moment in that 4 years at Columbia?
Yeah. I think I never really knew what product was until like maybe sophomore year. But I think I was looking for the PM role in like whatever capacity existed. So like I was really into like CS kind of my whole like like my whole childhood and growing up. Like I would do like coding camps, coding programs in middle school, and then I also did some like CS classes in high school where we got to build apps and all that stuff. Um, Kind of going into college, I was like, this is really cool. I like tech. Um, Maybe I don't want to do like software engineering because I personally just don't feel like I'm the strongest software engineer. Um, but then also there are like other facets of developing products that I'm really interested in. Like I'm really interested in design. Uh, I like thinking about marketing and how you message your product to users. Um, I also just like collaborating across like different functions of like a product team. Uh, so I was like, okay, like where does a role exist where like I could work on building products, but I'm also working on other things besides coding.
Yeah.
So I think that was the question I was asking, and then I think literally just by like looking it up online, I came across the Google APM program,
Hmm.
uh, and I would try to just like read articles about it. And I ended up going to like an information session that the program held, like a virtual information session, which was really powerful. And like a lot of pre-professional orgs on college campuses help connecting you with students who have more experience in like the industries and roles you might be interested in. So kind of studying CS and econ, I was like, there's so many things you could go into. Like like literally at all different points, I was recruiting for software engineering, product management, consulting, investment banking, asset
Yeah.
management,
Yeah.
and I was also thinking about pre-med. Like I was I was like I had very little direction. But I think I was able to rule out each of those industries just by talking to people who worked in them and just trying to learn
Mhm.
more. So just like using kind of like a lot of colleges are also like starting product orgs. Uh, like the PM fellowship at Columbia is also pretty new. So I think like leveraging those resources and
Yeah,
just
shout
talking
out
to
to Core,
students.
right? That's
So
the Core PM fellowship. Is that the
yeah,
one?
the core PM fellowship at Columbia, like just connecting with people in those orgs and just asking them about their experience helps you like rule out maybe what you don't want to be doing, maybe like gets you interested in what you might want to be doing. Um, and then you can kind of narrow down your interests.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you were very honest about all of the different paths that you considered, because it seems on the outside for a lot of people, especially like for someone that's an APM at Google, right? Oh, this person probably had it all figured out from the start, and this was what they were meant to do, right? But in reality, like you were exploring 5 different paths at some point. I'll ask one last question while I have you. I appreciate you taking time. Um, but it's about the startup. So, Critica, right, is the
Yeah.
music app. Is it
Yeah, it's like a music discussion app. It's basically Twitter for music.
awesome?
Yeah.
So, it's an app that makes it easier to discover new music through sentiment analysis. So, can you tell me like what was the initial idea for Critica? Maybe it changed, maybe it didn't. But what was the initial idea and the motivation to even start it?
Yeah. So the initial idea, it was a little bit of like a personal motivation. So like I'm pretty into music. I grew up playing piano, clarinet, played in the orchestra. I also produce. So I've been producing since I was like
Wow,
14. Um, and I just started DJing like 2 years ago.
nice.
So I'm like a music head.
Yeah.
And, I would kind of want to talk about, like maybe, oh, like the new Tyler album that just dropped. Um,
We
but
we gotta talk about the Kendrick album that
we
just
got
dropped.
to talk about the Kendrick album. Oh, you want to talk about the Kendrick album that just dropped? Or you want to talk about like the beef between like Drake and Kendrick?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you might want to do that, but like the only forums available are just like really like serious like Reddit forums. That's the idea we worked with. It went through a lot of iterations. We did a lot of customer interviews, interviewed like 50 plus people. Um, it changed a lot. And I don't think we even knew like where to go. Like at first we were like, oh, this is a project we want to do. We don't want to make money. And then eventually, like, we were told, if you guys are going to spend so much time working on this, you might as well try to monetize it and make it a startup. So that's when we started looking at like how we could monetize it. Um, we actually landed a partnership with Ticketmaster.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we pitched to Ticketmaster. We landed a partnership with them where we're gonna explore like basically selling Ticketmaster tickets within our app. Um, and we looked through like subscription models. Eventually, like we realized that the retention wasn't there.
Okay.
And
What
so
was
yeah, we
the
launched. Uh,
daily active user,
Daily active users was about like 2K, but we realized like the retention wasn't there.
I see.
Uh, and you know, and ultimately it's like when you're creating a product, you want to see it grow. Um, because it wasn't growing, we were like, okay, this was a great experience. We learned a lot. Let's stop paying the 300 monthly AWS costs and just like cut it off. um, but I think it was like a valuable experience for everybody on the team. Like I look back at it and I'm like, I don't know if I would have gotten like the APM internship if I didn't have that experience under my belt.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think, yeah, I think like kind of having a side project all the time is just like valuable, even if you don't see it being a full time gig. Um, like even right now, I'm exploring side projects, and what I learned from those is like something that like factors really really well into what I'm doing at work anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
love that. You're always growing and improving even when you're not at your 9 to 5. Like, you're
yeah,
becoming a better product person. I love it.
exactly.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. I'm excited to see what you do at Google. I think obviously APM product managers go on to do amazing things. So I can't wait to see what you do. And thanks for taking time to give your insights, share all of the valuable, resources, the books, all that good stuff. So, if you're watching this all the way through, congratulations and thank you for making it this far. Wish you the best in your application process in the next cycle, and reach out to us on LinkedIn if you have any questions. And we'll definitely be sending this video out to anyone that has questions, so we don't have to like directly write out the answers in every DM, right? So
Yeah.
cool.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
Awesome. Thanks, Obi. Have
All
a
right.
great one.
All right. You
Bye.
too.